Sometime in the mid-70s BC, pirates stopped a ship in the Aegean Sea and kidnapped a 25-year-old Roman noble. They knew exactly how this worked. They had done it 100 times. Hold the rich man, name a price, collect, release. They looked at his fine clothes, his small entourage, and they demanded 20 talents of silver, a fortune large enough to build and crew a small warship. The prisoner laughed at them. He told them they clearly had no idea who they had caught and raised his own ransom to 50. His name was Gaius Julius Caesar, and for the next 38 days, the most dangerous man on that ship was the hostage. To understand how a Roman aristocrat ends up in a pirate camp, you need to understand the Mediterranean in the 70s BC. Rome ruled the land, but the sea belonged to someone else. From hidden harbors along the mountainous coast of Cilicia, the southern edge of what is now Turkey, pirate fleets had grown from a nuisance into an industry. Rome's endless civil wars had left the seas unpoliced, and the pirates filled the vacuum. They raided coastal towns, they plundered the grain lanes, and they ran a thriving market in exactly one commodity: human beings. Ransom for the rich, slave blocks for everyone else. Ancient writers claim that at their height, the pirates commanded 1,000 ships. That number is probably inflated, but the fear behind it was real. Within a decade, Rome would be forced to hand Pompey the largest naval command in its history, just to make the sea Roman again. Into these waters sailed a young man who had already survived one death sentence. A few years earlier, the dictator Sulla had ordered the young Caesar to divorce his wife. Caesar, practically alone in Rome, refused and had to go into hiding while friends begged for his life. Sulla relented, but with a warning that became legend. In this boy, he said, there are many Mariuses. Now Sulla was dead, and Caesar was doing what ambitious young Romans did. He was heading east, to the island of Rhodes, to study rhetoric under Apollonius Molon, the most famous speaking coach in the Greek world, the man who had trained Cicero himself. He never made it. Near a small island called Pharmacusa, just off the coast of Asia Minor, the pirates took his ship. Plutarch, the ancient biographer who gives us the fullest version of this story, describes 38 days of captivity unlike anything the pirates had ever seen. Caesar kept only a friend and 2 attendants with him and sent the rest of his party off to the cities of Asia to raise the money. Then he settled in and treated the deadliest men in the Mediterranean like his personal staff. When he wanted to sleep, he sent a messenger to tell them to keep the noise down. When they exercised on the beach, he got up and joined them, wrestling, competing, one Roman patrician against a crew of cutthroats, behaving for all the world as if they were his bodyguard, not his captors. He filled the days writing speeches, poems, and here is the detail that tells you everything. He made them listen. He gathered the crew and performed his work, and when they failed to applaud, he called them illiterate barbarians to their faces. And then there was the joke. Again and again laughing, he made them a promise: when this is over, I am going to hunt you down and crucify every one of you. The pirates roared. The little aristocrat had spirit. They were a few weeks from learning that this man did not make threats. He made appointments. Why did they tolerate it? 50 talents. He had priced himself as the catch of a lifetime, and every poem, every jab, every command to keep the noise down made that number feel more real. His arrogance wasn't recklessness, it was collateral. The ransom came together in the Greek cities of Asia Minor and was delivered through Miletus, 50 talents of silver. The pirates counted it, kept their word, and put him ashore. Most men would have gone home, hugged their family, and told the story at dinner parties for the rest of their lives. Here is what Caesar did instead. Remember, he was a private citizen. He held no office, no military command, no legal authority of any kind. He walked into the harbor at Miletus, and on the strength of his name and his nerve alone, he raised ships and armed men. Then he sailed straight back the way he had come. The pirates were still anchored at the same island, still celebrating, presumably still doing impressions of their strange, loud house guest. Caesar hit them at their anchorage, captured most of them alive, and took back his 50 talents, plus everything else in the camp as spoils of war. Then he did everything by the book. He delivered his prisoners to the Roman governor of the province, a man named Juncus, whose job it was to sentence them. And Juncus hesitated. Pirates were valuable. Sold at the slave block, this crew was worth a fortune, and the governor seemed far more interested in the merchandise than in justice. He said he would think it over. Caesar looked at the man charged with upholding Roman law, saw a bureaucrat doing arithmetic, and decided the law needed a volunteer. He rowed back to the coast ahead of the governor's answer, took his prisoners out of the prison at Pergamon on no authority except his own, and kept his joke. Every pirate who had held him for 38 days went to the cross. One detail comes from the historian Suetonius, and it tells you everything about how Romans understood mercy. Because the pirates had treated him decently, Caesar had their throats cut first, so that no man who had been kind to him would suffer on the cross. To a Roman, that was gentleness. The sea, by the way, stayed lawless for another decade, until Rome finally gave Pompey 500 ships and swept the pirates from the entire Mediterranean in a single season. But by then, everyone who mattered had already heard the story of the young man who did it first, with borrowed ships as a hobby, to keep a joke. 30 years later, that same man stood on the bank of a small river called the Rubicon with a single legion, and crossed it against the law to take the entire Roman world. Everything Rome would learn about Julius Caesar is already in this story. The refusal to be valued below the maximum, the charm that turned captors into an audience, the patience to smile for 38 days, and the ledger in his head where every debt and every joke was eventually paid in full. The pirates thought they had caught a rich kid. They were the first people in history to underestimate Julius Caesar. They would not be the last. One footnote, because this channel deals in real history. This story comes to us from ancient biographers writing more than a century later, and they admired their subject. Scholars still argue over the exact year, 75 or 74 BC, and the neat details, the 50 talents, the 38 days, are Plutarch's numbers, so take them as ancient reporting, not court records. But the core of it, the capture, the ransom, the return, and the crosses, is attested by 3 independent Roman sources, and it is as solid as almost anything we know about Caesar's youth. If you want more true stories about the moments before famous people became famous, subscribe. The full list of sources, ancient and modern, is in the description.